content!
We've got to do Britain and Brexit and blah, blah, blah today, haven't we? At least to the degree that I can.
In historical terms, things are moving very fast.
Are we set?
History's been on ice for many, many years. And I think actually the Soviet Union is the history was on ice in the Soviet Union because the revolution occurred.
History was what?
History on ice. Because when the revolution occurred, there was a push towards an international revolutionary socialist system. But that was put on ice when Stalin took over. And from that moment until 1991, the whole world has been in this refrigerator. When things have been moving, yes, wars have happened. But the impetus of revolution, etc., was stopped. Now it's up in the open.
Well, you know the famous phrase from the Communist Manifesto, the history of all hitherto existing societies is the history of class struggle. And if you wanted to have an example of an epoch of revolution bursting forth unexpectedly, you could do far worse than look at the last month. Because from one country to another, revolutionary explosions of discontent have burst into the open. Some revolutionary, some counter-revolutionary, but actually revolution and counter-revolution often march together in terms of mobilization on the streets, demands for change, spreading of a message amongst the masses, and then the shifting balance, rapid shifting balance of power between one side and the other within the context of mass movements. And that certainly is the dynamic that we can witness in Lebanon, we can witness in Bolivia, we can witness in Chile, we can witness to some degree in Catalonia and in Hong Kong. In the case of Hong Kong, I believe it's a counter-revolutionary movement. In the case of Catalonia, well, an understandable national movement with just cause, at the same time as I'm not in favour of Catalan independence. That's not the decisive issue. But in Chile, for example, expecting for years, or better said, after years of moving towards reaction, after the defeat or defeats in Venezuela, in Ecuador and elsewhere, suddenly you have the emergence of Chile, after all, which had remained calm right throughout the period known as the pink wave in Latin America. Suddenly you have an explosion again in Chile, which hadn't really risen up since the events of the fall of Allende. And so it's within that globalized context of revolutionary struggle and counter-revolutionary struggle that you have to understand the specific dynamics which we are witnessing in countries like Britain, the United States of America, Brazil, and in the right-wing wave. So within that context, we have to understand what's happened with the rise of Boris Johnson. Now, to be fair to Johnson, unlike many in the Labour Party, he's played a good game. There's no doubt about it. He's played a good game. And his strategist, the mythical guru by the name of Dominic Cummings, has also played a good game. I believe he overestimates his capacity as an analyst of big data, social media, artificial intelligence, as the mechanism governing political dynamics. But what is not overestimated is the capacity of will. In other words, if you're going to start a fight, at least fight it to its conclusion. And that's a big mistake on the part of Corbyn. You see, Corbyn has come under pressure. Week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, from the right wing inside the Labour Party and from the so-called moderates inside the Labour Party, who have effectively gained control over determining the dynamics of political direction. How you doing, all right? And the consequence of that is, rather than adopting what Johnson has done, is carry out what Corbyn should have done. Corbyn was known as the outsider. Corbyn was known as the insurgent. Corbyn was known as a troublemaker. Agree or disagree, that didn't matter. People knew he stood on the left. He was tough. He was militant. He was determined to get his way through. But unfortunately, with the parliamentary machinations, with allegation after allegation, false, invented, anti-Semitic allegations, as well as not being tough enough on Remain or Leave, not taking a stance on Brexit. Corbyn needed to be more determined in standing up to the right wing in his own party. Whenever he did so, the mass media went hysterical. But the masses, the opinion polls, rose every time he stood up and defended what he actually stood for. And in this respect, Johnson is right. Grow some balls and start the fight. Even if the data looks bad. I don't care. I don't care if we're 10 points down in the poll. I don't care if we're 20 points down in the poll. Fight determinedly on the plan and programme that you believe in. Stand up to the right wing in your party. Stand up to the Tories. Stand up to the Liberals, the SNP, and defend what you truly believe in. If he does that, we can still win. We can still, but he needs to do that. The more he prevaricates, the more he's seen to be weak, the less likely he is to win. But it can be done. Not just because Corbyn is right, but because the political dynamics in Britain are extremely complicated, extremely fluid, and it cannot be guaranteed by Johnson that he will win. Because what if the Brexit party does well? What if the Liberals do well? We have a first past the post system. And therefore, if the Brexit party eats into the votes of the MPs on the Tory benches who have backed Remain, and if the Liberals attack them or back Remain, and they gain a proportion of the Leave votes and the Liberals take part of the votes from them as well, then it's not automatic that Labour will not win a majority. Labour can win a majority. I remember the last election. I'm a reporter, one of my hats that I wear. And I'm a Corbyn supporter, and I was on the list of the press for the election last time in the Labour Party. And I tell you what happened. Every single meeting Corbyn was supposed to speak at, the right wing of the party sabotaged those meetings during the election. In fact, on the very last day of the election, I received an email. The very last day, I received an email. It said 3 meetings today, 2 of which were in London. I got some friends of mine, get in my car, drove down there. Only Labour Party members had been told about the meeting because they did not want Corbyn to address the masses. There is internal sabotage by people who are closer to Johnson than they are to Corbyn inside the Parliamentary Labour Party. Let's not pussyfoot around and pretend this is not the case. It is the case. And by the way, many of the left, so-called left, are no better. Look at Emily Thornberry. Look at the way John McDonnell has behaved just now. Tom Watson, of course, but that's to be expected. To be fair, Tom Watson has hardly concealed his point of view. The problem now has come is that after Tom Watson puts his point of view, people like John McDonnell have started agreeing with him, thinking, oh, this will hold the party together. You cannot win the mass of the people towards a programme of change by vacillating, by standing up and saying, oh yes, but they said, oh, come under pressure from them. Oh, I agree with you. Oh no, put pressure on you. Oh, I agree with you. You can't do it like that. You have to stand firm, stand determined, and put forward your programme. Don't you think a 32-hour working week will win the support of 80 or 85% of the public? Of course it will. Don't you think a programme for low-cost housing for the mass of the population will win? Of course it will. But that means going out to the masses, speaking directly to them, not reading from an auto cue, not telling what the right wing in the party or the moderates have convinced you to say. It means speaking openly what your mind is, giving a full balance of what happened over the last years since 2015, 4 years since Corbyn was elected. If they can do that, I remember last election, the decisive turning point was one single event. And I know the people behind it. I know I got the inside story from it. Someone turned around and said to Corbyn, there's a gig in Liverpool by I think the band's called the Libertines. And they said, they've invited you to come and speak at the gig. And most of the advisors of Corbyn said, don't do it. What if someone throws a plastic bottle at you? What if they shout at you? What if they boo? It'll look terrible. But to be fair, and if I can catch some of the comrades here, Marsha Jane Thomas, she's one of Corbyn's minders. She's somebody who's going around with blue hair and pink hair. You might have seen her. And she said, and she's got a good instinct on this, she said to Corbyn, go there, stand up, see what happens. Let's make the effort. So Corbyn came into this pub concert, and the Libertines front man, he came up and he said, we got a special guest for you. And it's Jeremy Corbyn. So he got up and spoke. Cheers went wild because he was offering change. The abolition of tuition fees. Will that not get the students to vote again? It will. Provided you stand up and say, I stand for this, I stand for this, I stand for this. I don't care. Just like Johnson's doing. I don't care what the others say. I stand for this. I make my mark. Archimedes once said, the great Greek philosopher, give me a fulcrum, a lever, and I will move the universe. Give me a point to stand, a reference point, a man who stands firm, and I will move the universe. So it is. That is why he became a pole of attraction. That is why he's lost that pole for the time being. But it can be recuperated, provided he stands up and fights. That's what's required. That's what's needed. That's what he must do. That's what we must do. There is an election coming. The Tories, ready we know, the Brexit deal the Tories want means the destruction of workers' rights. It means leaving the European Union, fine, I don't have any problem, but joining the United States of America without any referendum. Yes, they'll make a deal. Donald Trump will say, yes, you will end free movement with Europe, but you can have free movement with the United States of America. You end trade, unfettered trade with Europe, but you can have unfettered trade with the United States. That's what's going to be proposed. So make no mistake about it. The bullshit that Johnson has proposed, and he's only done it for one reason. Johnson, you look at when he talks on the television, every single statement he makes to the journalists, he does with this sort of wry smile on his face. He sat in a room with Dominic Cummings. He said, what should we do now? Dominic Cummings says, look, you need to carry on. One will, one policy, one determination. Even if you don't agree with it, doesn't matter. Just say it. Because that will look good. That will gain strength. That will gain votes. So he stands up there and he goes, and knowing that they played this through in advance, he goes to the press officer. Laura Koonsberg says to him, aren't you just, no, we're not manipulating things. We're, we must get Brexit done, 31st of October. And you can see he's got a wry smile all the time. He doesn't believe a word he's saying. He says it because he knows it will secure the objective that the population think, here's a man with determination. Not only can he front down Parliament, look, he's right. Parliament looks like a joke. He's right. not getting Brexit done looks like a joke. He's right. Let's not pussyfoot about and lie. And yes, I admit, and I've said this all along, in the last 3 years, if we leave the European Union, even on Thursday this week, without a deal, there will be no catastrophe. There won't be starvation. There won't be hunger. There won't be shortages of medicines leading to thousands of deaths. It will not happen. I was living in East Berlin 30 years ago this month, before the Berlin Wall came down. When Germany unified, a totally different socio-economic system was destroyed and a new one created on the 1st of July 1990 when the money was changed over. Yes, there was unemployment, but that was a different system. This is not a different system. This is just a border between England and Europe. And by the way, it shows how frigging useless that border is even now. The fact that you get 39 people die in a container. That's the reality. And that, of course, is an important point to make to people who are talking about European Union migration and so on. What we're talking about is the deaths in the Mediterranean, the deaths on that container last week and the one before that came from China. We don't need a world sealing itself up and closing itself off. In fact, what we're witnessing, simultaneous to this ridiculous nationalistic, localistic ideology being promoted by Bolsonaro, by Modi, by Donald Trump, by Boris Johnson, by Le Pen and co. What they're promoting is this idea, we are in a new world where everyone has to be divided up because we've all got different identities, different interests, different groupings, different national interests, different commercial interests. No, we do require, and we experience, and we know, and we've moved in this direction for decades. An increasingly open world, with increasing migration, with increasing interpenetration, with the cities of the main countries looking like New York and London. That is a good thing. A good thing. Yes, there are conflicts come out of it. Yes, there are religious conflicts, but at the same time, there's also the inevitable dynamic towards the universality of the working class of the world. Muslim, Christian, Jewish, every religion under the sun. We have in some schools have 80 languages. Good, not a bad thing, a good thing. Because it means the kids can learn 80 languages from each other. And yes, it is possible, not just a mad thing on the internet where it says learn 10 languages in a week. It is perfectly possible in a city like London for the exchange of ideas and experience from the entire planet to foster a consciousness and understanding and an intellect amongst our children and their children of a globalized world of solidarity, a globalized world of cooperation, but not on the basis of the present system that dominates this world. We live in a world, fact, dominated by capitalism. When I say capitalism, I don't mean you going and buying a cup of tea from the Speaker's Corner Cafe. I don't mean someone buying a plastic straw or a paper straw. I'm not talking about superficiality. I'm talking about the system, the fundamental system that governs our lives, whereby you're born within a society where you're compelled from your youth to be prepared to sell your labour power for a wage to the capitalist class, one employer or another, McDonald's or Pret, Foxtons or Bensons, estate agents. I'm not talking about the choice between one or the other. I'm talking about fundamentally transforming the balance of wealth and power in society, which means the concentrated power of capital. Not every fish and chip shop, not every cafeteria, not every restaurant or every clothes shop, but the decisive levers of finance, the big banks, 140 companies in the world, according to a study in New Scientist by Vitali and Co. Swiss researchers, They looked at the global network power of the largest corporations. 140 companies control 40% of world trade. That's what governs our world, not Boris Johnson, not Donald Trump, not Bolsonaro, not Modi, not the Queen of England, but the corporate power, centralised, coordinated, and many of these companies that actually control the world, you don't even know their names. You won't even know their names. But if you look at the back of the Financial Times, there's like 4 or 5 pages of statistics and names. Look in there, borrow it, find one on the street, look in there, and there you'll see the stock markets of the world and the largest companies within them. They control the world, not the government, not the politician of England, France, Germany or America, but these giant corporations which control on the reverse. They control the governments. They control the agendas. They set the discussion. They own the mass media. They dominate world politics, world economics, world opinion. They shape it. They control the media industry. They control the film industry. They control the internet. They control Facebook. They control Google. They control Yahoo. They control YouTube. They control the world. And it is by breaking their power, by seizing those companies, taking them into public ownership, making the economy of the world, the resources, the finance, the material and human labour, organised and clustered around them like iron filings around magnets. That's what controls the world. And therefore we need to refocus. And that's the task of Jeremy Corbyn now. No more pussyfooting around. No more bullshitting about deals and friendly relations and polite politics. Smash them. Break them. Bring to power the Labour movement on a programme of change. Radical, democratic transformation of society, which means a transformation in the balance of wealth and power at the very top of society. I don't mean go and grab someone's house in Eaton Square. I mean grab the shares and stocks that they own over the world economy that shape your lives and my life. That is how we'll get it. That means, and by the way, that's the reason why China does well. Because in China, you have millions of private companies, something like 20 million now. But of them, 108 companies in China control the entire Chinese economy. That's how it is in Britain as well. So seize the top companies, take them into public ownership, and then use the resources of society for peace, freedom, and plenty in a plan that is in harmony with the ecology. And in that way, we can still turn the tide. We can still win. Not only because of revolutionary events around the world, like the explosion of unrest in Chile, but because in a country like Britain, we need to bring out these contradictions. And then we can get, yes, Labour can get a majority, both amongst Leave voters and Remain voters. This is a scam. One of the great scams of history. To make the British people divided, one against another, family against family, elder against younger, brother against sister, neighbour against neighbour. Are you for Brexit? Are you for Remain? No, this is not the issue. The European Union is not a defender of the rights of the people. Look at what they're doing in Catalonia. That's defending the right. Look what they did in Greece. That's defending the rights. No, it's not defending the rights. But on the other side, you can't say leaving the European Union under the rule of the British ruling class. One man owns the whole of Mayfair. One man. His wealth is derived from 1066, the Duke of Westminster. His family inherited from generation to generation over 1,000 years. Don't tell us their interests are our interests. They are not. We must bring out the fundamental division in society. Those who sell their labour power for a wage every week, every month, and they're telling us if you're under 50 you'll work till you're 75. That's what they're saying. In France, don't forget, for a year now, 1 year, France wealthier than Britain, at the core of the European Union. For 1 year, week in, week out, the masses have been on the streets. 11 people have been killed on those demonstrations. Every single week they come out and demonstrate. Why? Because capital and labour are at war with each other. Marx was right. The history of all hitherto society, civilized society, is the history of class struggle. That is what we have. That is why labour is called labour, to represent the workers who sell their labour power for a wage. That is what we must do. And I appeal to those in the Labour Party, those close to the Labour Party. Take note. This is the path we must take. A path of battle. Don't fear the battle, join the battle, enjoy the battle. And if we lose, fight again. That way you create the spirit necessary to win the long-term struggle, which is a struggle not between Labour and Tory, but between capital and Labour.
Like they failed in East Germany where you said you were. It fails. Your system doesn't work. Communism doesn't work.
Well,
you're talking fairy tales and unicorns. It's nonsense. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Nothing to be sorry about. It's a perfectly rational and logical argument. And that's the argument we need to have. That's what should be happening in the House of Commons. What is socialism? What is capitalism? That's what we need to discuss. And by the way, then it comes onto the Soviet Union. Now you can look on Mixcloud and you'll find, on SoundCloud, you'll find an interview I did with Jeremy Corbyn back in 2004, where we discussed exactly this issue. We had slight disagreement, but basically we agreed. The Soviet Union, as Marx explained, and as Lenin and Trotsky explained, was never going to be able to establish socialism because it was a backward country. 95% of the population were peasants. They worked on the land. They had no urbanization. Only 10 million people lived in the cities. We live in an overwhelmingly urban society, dominated by the working class as a social class. The whole of Europe, actually. So it's a totally different relationship between different social. I will answer that. Thank you for that. I'm not trying to hide it. I moved to East. I'll answer you. The Soviet Union is the foundation for that. East Germany did not independently establish power. East German state was established by the Soviet army. Let me finish what I'm saying. I will answer your point. The Soviet army moved in at the end of the Second World War after they defeated Hitler at war. The consequence of that was the division of Europe, in which two industrialized areas came under control of Soviet sphere of influence. One was Czechoslovakia, the other was East Germany. But the hierarchy of power and administration had already been established by the Committee for a Free Germany in the training camps inside the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin during the Second World War and before the Second World War, because the Communist Party was driven into exile after 1933 in Germany, after Hitler came to power, and they moved to the Soviet Union. And they were trained under Stalin in preparation, eventually, for what would happen after the Second World War. And therefore they came in and established the same hierarchical structure of power as it existed in the Soviet Union. I hoped in 1989, when I moved to East Germany to participate in the revolution, to bring down the East German government. I've got a Stasi file from the time showing that I was engaged in activity against that government because I believed, and actually, to be fair, most people in East Germany at this time, 30 years ago, agreed with me. And what we wanted was socialism and democracy, a planned economy, but democratically controlled by the working class and the people. That was what we agitated. I remember being on the demonstration on the 4th of November, about 750,000 people in Berlin. And I made a radio show, you can find it on the internet, or a broadcast on Resonance FM, where I interviewed those people who participated, many of the people participated. I translated the speeches. I remember this woman, Steffi Spearer, spoke at the rally, and she quoted from Bertolt Brecht, from his poem, Lob der Dialektik, in praise of dialectics. The way things are, they shall not remain. He who says never will be disproven this very day. Society is driven by its internal contradictions. At a certain point, those internal contradictions, which appear settled, appear calm, appear quiet, explode onto the scene of history. Such are the events we are seeing in Lebanon. We are seeing in Chile, out of the blue. Chile, don't forget, was the England of South America. The England of South America. The country with long democratic tradition. Then in 1970, when Allende was elected, they prepared the ground for a vicious coup d'etat. You know the singer Victor Jara. Te recuerdo Amanda. Fantastic song about the working class. But when the counter-revolution of Pinochet, who was supported by Johnson, who was supported by Margaret Thatcher at the time, when the counter-revolution took power, they packed 70,000 people in the main stadium and started annihilating them. Victor Jara, the guitarist and popular, they sliced his hands off. These are the barbarians who the British establishment are quite happy to sell manacles to, weapons to. Look at Saudi Arabia. They talk about, oh my God, Saudi Arabia. It was attacked by Iran, they say, or the Yemenis, backed by the Iranians. But they don't say how many people, millions of people on the edge of starvation in Yemen today, as a result of the war by Saudi Arabia against the Yemenis people. So, get the facts straight. Revolution is endemic to the world situation today. And we must observe not only the parliamentary machinations. These are a joke, and people in Britain are right to think these are a joke. They're right to think this is idiocy, what's happening in Parliament. The charade, the theatre, the bullshit, and the crap they talk on telly. Laura Koonsberg makes a career out of talking crap about Brexit, not Brexit, Brexit, not Brexit. Every time an ironic, oh, next week is going to be decisive. The week after, decisive. Tomorrow, decisive. How exciting. Most people in Britain, when they see that stuff, they go, ugh. I want none of it. I don't want to watch it. I'm sick of it. That's the natural attitude of people towards this. So we must break through this barrier, appeal to the masses to make fundamental revolutionary change in society. That is what's required, not only here, but worldwide. And the mood is stimulating around the world for this. That's why we're seeing explosions now. That's why we're seeing revolutions developing now. Embryonic, elemental, initial, but they are the hallmarks, I guarantee you, and I've been in a number of revolutions. I've observed them firsthand. They are the hallmarks of the beginning of continental and worldwide revolutionary upheaval. The capitalist class are preparing for a global downturn in the economy, like that we saw in 2008, just the same as 2008 until 2019 was characterized entirely by what happened that year. So the economic crisis impending in the world will characterize the dynamics of world politics and worldwide unrest for the next 10 or 15 years. And we must not lie to people. We must not pretend to people things are calm, quiet, parliamentary, polite. We must explain the world is heading towards cataclysmic revolutionary upheavals, and we must embrace them, join them, and bring about change. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Same time, same place, next week.
Come take away everything from your humanity. Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
Ask yourself,
Listen.
how the Chinese afford to buy Chinatown in Piccadilly, Chinatown in Manchester, Chinatown in Newcastle. This is not kebab and duck, rice on the duck. This is bloody to the idiot. Yes, if you sell duck and rice on the duck, 500 years you cannot buy Piccadilly. This is bloody illegal gambling in the basement. Nobody can go there because there's so many security gates. Even a Chinese man cannot snitch on them. There is prostitution. There is human traffic. There is drug traffic. Not the bloody skunk Brixton and Beckham. This hashish, no. We're talking about the hardcore, the cocaine, the heroin. This is the big stuff. They give you small bloody hashish to sell it, but the big heroin come from the big gang.